warm weather's finally returned, so I can return to this project as well. Before we start with the expanding foam, I just want to go over a few things that we need to do. The expanding foam is messy, so we have to protect a few areas before we can start. You want to go ahead and put the USB cover in place to protect it from any dirt, debris, expanding foam, whatever. They're more like inserts than covers. You can see this is what they look like, and they're available on Amazon. You also want to grab 3 or 4 rubber bands. First rubber band, you want to take the power cord for the monitor and go ahead, wrap it up, try to make it as small as possible. Wrap the power cord and the USB cable in the plastic wrap and then use a rubber band to secure it in place. For this next part, you're going to need the plastic wrap plus painter's tape. I highly recommend the green stuff. It works way better than the blue. What we're going to do is we're going to use both to protect the vents from the expanding foam. Cut yourself some plastic wrap and cover up the vents. Neatness doesn't count here. It doesn't matter. So just go ahead, press it all into place until the entire vent is covered. Use the painter's tape to secure the plastic wrap in place. Turn over your video Tombstone and clean the plexiglass using any kind of window cleaner. Use Goo Gone if you have any kind of adhesive or glue on the plexiglass. Cover the plexiglass in a sheet of plastic wrap. Leave enough room on the edges of the plexiglass so that the tape can be secured to the plexiglass as well. Use your painter's tape to secure the plastic wrap to the plexiglass. Try to keep all the tape on the plexiglass and not on the foam board. We're all set to do the expanded foam, and now we'll move to an outdoor location. I've set up the video Tombstone in the garage so that we can apply the expanding foam. The key here is to make sure that the cabinet is lying completely flat and that there's no bulge or deflections. We want to make sure that the monitor inside is lying completely flat against the plexiglass. You've noticed that the cabinet itself, when put in an upright position, is a little bit wonky. What we want to do here is make sure that 1, the monitor is completely flat against the glass, so that 2, when we put the expanding foam on the back, when it dries, it will hold that monitor in place and it will no longer move. The design of the monitor itself, if you feel this area right in here, this is the part that will hold the monitor in place once we get the expanding foam on. We can start with the expanding foam right now. Prior to this project, I have never used this stuff except for filling cracks. So let me give you some advice from what I've experienced. Make sure you shake the can vigorously, and I mean shake it. After you lay it down, do not touch it because it will deflate like a balloon if you do. You're just going to have to accept any gaps or holes that you see until it dries. Regardless, you're just going to have to resign yourself to the fact that you'll be carving that foam once it's cured. Finally, don't try to fight gravity with this stuff. Make sure that when you put it down, that the surface that you want to cover is parallel to the ground so that gravity is your friend and not your enemy. Because even though it might be foam, it's still a liquid and gravity will pull it down. So the application to the back of the video Tombstone is complete. And as you can see, yeah, it's kind of messy. But after this thing cures in 8 hours or so, you'd be surprised what a knife can do. After about 15 minutes, the foam should be dry to the touch. And at this point, you can take advantage of this and try to smooth it out a bit. It's not going to be much, but at least it'll be enough to keep your carving to a minimum. With your hand, just keep pressing down onto the foam and try to get it so that all of it is in contact with the back of the video Tombstone. And the goal here is just to flatten this out as much and reduce your carving time as much as possible. By pressing down continuously, you can essentially force all of the gas out from underneath the foam itself. Just let it escape from the sides or from the bottom or the top. And you'll notice now how much further down that expanded foam has gone. And also that it's a little bit flatter than it was before. And that's one of the benefits of doing that. In about 8 hours, this will be fully cured, and you'll notice that this part, which is still a little bit flappy, that'll be rock hard. It'll just be nothing but hard foam. So the expanded foam is now fully cured. And you can see right now, all flimsy is now turned hard. And now we're ready to do the other side. I've gone ahead and applied the expanding foam to the front side. As you can notice, I put some extra foam along the base so that it'll appear thicker than the part of the Tombstone. And one note, unlike the backside, we're gonna leave the foam as is. We're not gonna press it down. We're just gonna let it go ahead and harden for the 8 hours until it cures. Oh, and as for those pesky screws that are popping out on the bottom of the base, I've taken the expanding foam and put a little dab over each screw. You don't need a lot. I've kind of overdid it in a couple of places, but that's all right. After it dries and hardens, you can cut them down so that the base will lie flat. Okay, so the front of the video Tombstone is now cured, and what we're gonna do is finish the top and the two sides. I know previously I said you don't want to fight gravity with this foam, but if you look at the sides, you can see what we're basically going to do is fill in that empty channel that was left over, and that channel will help hold the foam in place. So I added expanding foam to the top and sides. Also note that around the cowls, around the exhaust vents, I also cover those with foam as well. As far as expanding foam goes, we're done. Just let this cure 8 hours, and after that, you're ready to start carving. And for those interested, it took 4 cans of the expanding foam to finish this one Tombstone. As you can see, the expanded foam now has fully cured, and in fact, it's kind of exploded. It expanded a little bit bigger than I thought it would, but that's okay. That's what the next part's for, and that's grab your knife and some blades and start carving. Right here, I'm just gonna say you can carve this however you want. It's really up to you. However artistically inclined you feel, go for it. So after a few hours of carving, here's the finished product. I think it turned out really well. I kept the same square upper structure, but on the base I put some extra foam so that I could get a nice thick square base for the Tombstone. Now you'll notice there's holes and crevices and such in the foam. Not to worry, most of that will be taken care of in the next step, which is applying the foam coat. Before we proceed to that next step, I want to go over a few issues that I encountered and that you may encounter as well. First, I want to discuss the base. You'll notice that there appears to be large chunks of foam missing on both the left hand and right hand side. That'll happen sometimes. You never know how this will carve out. Very easy fix though. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'll reapply some foam in those areas. I'll let it cure and then carve it so that I get a better square on the base. When I was carving the left hand side, I discovered that there was little or no foam going all the way down to the tray. I'll fix that problem by just adding some more foam along the bottom part of that tray, letting it cure, and then I'll carve it. Another important note is to make sure that the bottom of the plexiglass, that there's no foam blocking the lower portion. You want to make sure that no water can collect along that bottom portion of the plexiglass. You'll also note the way I carve the foam is that it slants down as you move away from the plexiglass. That's to ensure that the water will not collect and will roll off. Here's a shot of the back. I just wanted to show you how I carve the cowls over the intake and output vents. It looks better in my opinion, and it'll also protect it from nasty weather. What you're looking at is not an uncommon problem when working with foam. What I've exposed here was a trapped gas pocket. These will form because the foam itself is under a lot of pressure, and that gas sometimes will collect and form these pockets. It's very easy to repair. All you need to do, take your expanding foam and just inject foam until the entire cavity is filled. My advice is that whenever you see a hole, no matter how small, go ahead and inject it with foam. Better safe than sorry. One other important point, when you inject the foam into these holes, apparently the cure time increases greatly. Last year when I did this, I waited the 8 hours supposed cure time, and it turned out that the expanding foam was still curing after I had put on the foam coat and paint. I'll show you what happened in a later video. I highly suggest that you wait a minimum of 24 hours after doing this before you apply the foam coat. The finished product, after applying a second coat of expanding foam in a few areas, and you can see now the base has a nice blocky solid look. All of the holes have been plugged and we're just about ready to do the foam coat. But before we do the foam coat, I want to point out a couple of things here. First, here at the bottom of the plexiglass, this is the one spot where water can collect if it rains. You can see that the seam between that foam board and the expanding foam is very obvious. So the easy solution to fix this is that we're going to cover that seam with silicone seal. I just applied a bead of caulk, and then using a glove finger, I just smoothed it out and made sure that the seam between the foam board and the expanded foam was completely covered with the silicone seal. Expose the bottom of the base, and anywhere where there's a seam between the expanding foam and the base itself, use the silicone seal and apply a bead all the way around 360 degrees. This is the area that will most likely come into the contact with moisture, especially if it's raining. And the silicone seal itself is the best protection against that water. So here's the finished product, fully carved. The foam is fully cured, as well as the silicone seal. Here's a shot of the back, just so that you can see how I finished the cowls around the intake and output vents. We're now ready to move on to the next step, and that's applying foam coat.